All right, everybody. Hey, we're back from a break, and you are in store for a great session with our buddy Garrison Gilbert here. He has done an amazing job. Not only is he just a hardworking, boots on the ground, kicking ass, taking names kind of investor, but he's really blossomed. Not only was he doing a great job beforehand, but he's taken his business to a whole different level in the last 24 months and doing some amazing stuff. So we're honored to have him here today. Join us. He's got some great lessons. I think you guys will get a lot of knowledge from this, but don't be afraid to ask questions. Garrison is one of the most free giving of advice and counsel because he's been through the ups, the downs, and done some great things. And also we've taken our hits along the way as well too. So without further ado, our good buddy Garrison Gilbert, man. Thanks for being a speaker here at Note Camp Commercial, Garrison.
Much appreciated. I'm super happy to be here, and I'm super excited to talk about something I absolutely love, which is real estate, but even more specific, commercial real estate and multifamily real estate. A little bit about me, 18 years, full-time real estate investor. I have done absolutely nothing other than real estate since college. Back when I was 22 years old, I moved to a city where I knew absolutely nobody, in a state where I knew absolutely nobody, and just couldn't find that corporate job that I was looking for. So long story short, I did what any smart 22-year-old would do. I went and bought the very first house that I went and looked at. Something that I definitely advise against right now, but at that point in time, my risk factor was a lot bigger, or my risk tolerance was a lot bigger than what it is today. And fortunate enough that everything worked out for the best, and I met a great individual from day one who literally helped me propel from my very first single family house to 1,200 properties.
Wow.
And 1,200 properties kind of sounds impressive to everybody except for the people who have done something like that. Single family has been a godsend on one hand. We've made a lot of money. I've built a lot of friends. I've made a lot of connections. But my opinion is single family is a job, and commercial is kind of where it's at. So let's talk a little bit about those 1,200 properties that I did buy. I've done absolutely everything in the real estate sector. Small, cheap, fix and flips, Section 8 properties, low price Section 8 properties where back in the day, 2002, we were able to buy some things for $8,000, $10,000, put 8-10 into them and turn around and sell them for 30, 40. So we were doubling our money, and it was a great time. But looking back on it, if I could have gotten into commercial or multifamily a lot sooner, life would be a lot different right now. Not that life isn't great. I think that everything happens for a reason. But I feel as if I spent a little too much time in the single family space. So we're going to talk about some commercial today. We're going to talk about some real estate notes today. We're going to talk about multifamily and some of those things along that lines. So as I said, real estate is definitely something that I love. Multifamily is something that I am super passionate about. I've been fortunate enough where it has literally taken me around the world. I lived in China for a year, raising capital. I've literally been around the world. Just last month, a gentleman, actually a family from El Salvador, invited me down because they wanted to talk about investing capital into a couple of larger projects that we're working on. So I've been very fortunate, and I have a small little mastermind group, which I would love to get Mr. Scott Carson involved with. But 3 times a year, 2-3 times a year, we take individuals around the world. We do some really interesting, some really unique, some really high-end things. We just came back from Cabo, Mexico. 2 months ago, we're going to Aruba in another month. Back in Cabo, we rented a huge resort just for me and my friends. We had a 5-star wait staff, a 5-star restaurant. We rented a private resort in a remote area. We rented a 125-foot yacht. I don't know about you, but I don't really rent 125-foot yachts very often, but you get a great group of people like that together. You get to do some really great things, and I'm very fortunate because of it. So some things about me real estate-wise, some things that hopefully you can relate to. I started directly out of college, no capital, no cash, no family backing, no real network to co-sign loans for me, no real network to push me along. I have every excuse in the book as to why I should not be sitting right here in front of you today. But, you know, I think everything happens for a reason. For example, I was raised by a single stay-at-home mother. Think about that, a single stay-at-home mother. My father passed away when I was 6 months old. And people, when I tell that story, people are like, oh, that's so bad. No, you know, honestly, I think everything happens for a reason. I grew up in a small town in the middle of Pennsylvania where I was literally related to everybody. My father ended up being one of 17 or 18 altogether. I have hundreds of cousins. Nobody leaves that small town. I was one of the few that got the opportunity to go to college. I was one of the few that got the opportunity to move to Baltimore, Maryland, and kind of do my own thing. And I've really worked hard at surrounding myself with positive-minded people who, once you hang around with the right people, you're a combination of 5 people you hang out with. Once you hang out with 5 people, you are a combination of those 5 people. So choose those 5 people very carefully. And over the last few years, especially since I met Mr. Scott Carson, I've really tried to expand my network, grow my network, which has in turn helped grow me and grow my business, which has provided a great amount of opportunity for myself and my family. So let's see here. Let's see if I can open up this PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, no problem. All you got to do is, if you I see in the Zoom thing, just hit the share button at the middle, and then it should pop up a screen that has all the stuff that you have open on your screen, and just pick the PowerPoint from there.
Actually, my Zoom is in a small window in the upper right-hand corner.
You should, if you move your cursor, it should still give you a bottom. Yeah, your Zoom is to be a little picture at the top. But do you see the control panel, like where to do your microphone and your video?
No, I did it until you hopped on. Then whenever you hopped on, it kind of kicked me to a little window. And now I have the options of stop video, mute my audio, rename, and hide myself.
Hang on here. There's not a, let's see here.
It's like I'm literally on like I can't even enlarge it. I'm on like a 6-inch by 6-inch window on the corner of my screen.
That's weird. So you don't see a mute, a start video, a Q&A?
No. No, I did earlier when we were talking, and then it shot me over to a short window.
Hang on here. Let's do something here. Why don't you do this? Why don't you refresh, log back in?
Okay, cool.
Log back in, because then it should be okay then. It's Garrison.
Here we go.
There you go.
Share video, Microsoft PowerPoint.
There you go. Now just maximize it or play. Yep. Play from the start on the left-hand side.
Yep.
Perfect. There we go.
Nice. So, a little bit about me. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. 18 years, full-time real estate. Nothing else since college. 1,200 properties since 2001. At one point in time, I owned the largest wholesale company in the Baltimore, D.C. area. That was a long time ago, roughly 2004 or so. I've done approximately 400 fix and flips. I've done land development where we have bought small farms in the Pennsylvania area and built 75 to 150 subdivisions. I bought beach houses up and down the East Coast. I used that as an excuse for me to get to the beach a little bit, but I saw a little bit of an opportunity and we made it happen. I met Scott Carson a few years ago when I wanted to learn the ins and outs of non-performing notes. And just in the last 3 to 4 years, I've accumulated roughly 604 apartments. The bulk of my inventory is student rentals right in the Baltimore area. Nobody looks at a map. Nobody picks up an atlas and says, I want to move to Baltimore, Maryland. I want to be a landlord. I want to buy multifamily real estate. But I was able to make it happen because I analyzed my market. I saw the universities. I picked down a small little area or two where I thought that I would be able to get some real value on apartments, and I would be able to offer affordable housing for students, give them enough of a discount where they're willing to travel a little bit out of their geographic comfort zone per se. And it has worked out. I've been able to, quote unquote, steal some apartments while still getting pretty much top dollar in rental income from students. So it's been a great few years. I just wish that I would have gotten into multifamily commercial a little bit sooner, but better late than never. Let's go back one screen. Boom. So over the last 3 or 4 years, I've really made a social media push. And that social media push has literally changed my life. For the first 15 years of my career, I literally had a goal of remaining anonymous. Nobody knew the name Garrison Gilbert. I hid behind my company name, which was called Intellivest at the time. I did not understand that this is a team sport. I did not understand how your network is your net worth. I really wish someone would have drilled that upon me a little bit sooner. But it took Scott Carson pushing me quite a few times before I really jumped into the social media arena. I have an absolute win mentality, and this is kind of what sets me apart and sets my team apart. I really believe in karma. I honestly want everybody around me to win. Last year, I was interviewed by Think Realty magazine. I was nominated for a multifamily investor of the year. Granted, I did not win, but I was more than happy just to be considered for the nomination. And because of social media, I've been pretty fortunate where 3 times a year, I've been able to speak in front of 500 to 800 people, which is the background on this screen right here. I have a multifamily mentor that hosts some really big multifamily boot camps, and it's been a great learning experience. It's been a great networking experience. And I am a multifamily real estate coach. I have my own mastermind / accountability group. And I just started a company called multifamilymasters.com, which you'll see at the bottom right here. We're in the process right now of launching 40 meetups across the country, simply or strictly multifamily real estate, with the intentions of having 150 locations within the next 12 months. We will get that accomplished. We'll be very strategic about it. We will offer the best meetup out there for the multifamily industry. And the high-end mastermind group that I talked about a little bit ago, that's a company that I started with 2 business partners who I met at one of these multifamily conferences. It's called Secret X. It's called Secret X because we don't tell people what we're doing until we get there. And been very fortunate to surround myself with some really awesome people. My goals right now, other than for everyone around me to win, because I honestly believe that if you're climbing a ladder and you have one hand up and you put one hand down, you have someone kind of reaching for you and pulling you up a little bit, and you help pull up a couple other people while you're climbing that ladder. And I'm building out my network and I'm building out my team because I do have a goal of getting to 10,000 apartments, and I'm not going to do that alone. One of the biggest differences between single family and multifamily is that this is a team sport. And I really want to surround myself with awesome people, like-minded people, people that are doing really great things, and people that want to see me win because I want to see them win, and we're going to do it together. Your network is your net worth. So with that being said, make sure you surround yourself with the right people. And this is something that a few years ago that I really had to concentrate on and really think about and really change my life. I took it kind of to an extreme almost. I don't talk to most of my family at the moment. I haven't talked to my sister in a few years. And that is because I only want to surround myself with positive, like-minded people And I'm not directing this necessarily towards her or towards some of the people that I grew up with, but I really wanted to surround myself with people that are doing big things. I don't want people in my life that gossip. I don't want people in my life that lie. I don't want people in my life that think they deserve something just because they know me or they're related to me, or people that have the mentality of, you're so lucky. There's nothing about luck in this business. This business is a thought out game plan. And if you prepare yourself and if you're a creative problem solver, you can really do some awesome things. I used to own a boat, and I like to use the analogy of a boat where, you know, everybody wants to get from point A to point B, and you're hoping that it's just a straight line and it's smooth sailing. But if you've ever driven a boat, you know that that thing starts to veer off to the left, veer off to the left, veer off to the left. You know, there's a constant changing of that wheel, a constant getting that boat back on track. And I've really taken the mentality of, that's how life is. You can't get overwhelmed by problems in your life. You can't get overwhelmed by little obstacles here and there. If something bad happens today, you figure out how to fix it. You move on, you ask for help, you get help, you do what you have to do to win, and you move on to the next obstacle, because there's going to be another one right around the corner. So you can't bog yourself down with any type of negative thoughts or negative things that come across your desk on a day-to-day basis. Some things I am currently working on. Just the other day, I decided to sell off 110 of my apartments because the market is hot. Let's be real. Now's the time that I want to sell, because there's not a lot of inventory on the market. We're still seeing multiple bids on properties. We're still seeing people overpaying, and I want to take advantage of that, plain and simple. I am currently in the process of renovating 2 smaller apartment buildings. I am raising capital on a 200-unit property, and my team is raising capital on an 80-unit property. And we're taking on JV partners for a 40-unit apartment portfolio that a few years ago I paid cash for it. We renovated them. We got them stabilized. We got students in place. And so I'm looking to replenish my bank account a little bit by bringing on a couple JV partners, some people who have some capital to invest, some people who want to learn this business by doing this business. I am in the process of launching a new startup for Q4. I mentioned earlier that I really try to surround myself with some really awesome people. I've been very fortunate to surround myself with some super smart people. One of my business partners, #1 in their class at Harvard. We have a couple people that work in our office that is a top-notch PhD from Hopkins University, one of the top schools in the country. We have a very elite artificial intelligence person from MIT. We have a person out of North Carolina that is elite from Oxford University. And I don't say that stuff. I don't really care what school you went to, if you went to school. But if you're #1 in your class at some of these top-notch universities, chances are that you have something really good going on. And those are the people I want to surround myself with. And those are the type of people that have a really awesome network, a really awesome group of friends that I would not be able to tap into otherwise. So it's been nothing but a win-win, and my business is built on win-wins. And I want to put a little disclaimer here at the bottom. I may mention some large numbers to you, such as a 200-unit property and an 80-unit property. I'm selling off 110 apartments, but don't be fooled. Don't let those large numbers scare you. I built up a 200-unit portfolio over the last probably the last 2.5, 3 years, maybe 3.5, by buying a lot of small properties, 4 units, 5 units, 10 units, 16 units, because that's what the market gave us. I was able to get directly to the seller. I was able to create win-win relationships with me and that seller and really give them what they wanted. And it's not always all about price. But if I'm able to get directly to the seller and I just listen to them, I listen to why they want to sell, when I listen to what they want their money for, then I'm able to structure the right type of deal for the right person. And we're able to buy some really solid properties with some really solid numbers, even in this hot market. Over the last 4 years, I would have loved to have just been buying 100-unit apartment buildings. But once that property got to a commercial broker, my opinion for at least myself is the numbers were too tight. And I only want to buy properties that I steal. Something that I didn't mention a little bit ago. I bought 1,200 properties starting in 2002. Before 2005, I had $1 million saved up in my bank account. I don't say that to brag, not at all. But fast forward 2 years after that, I thought I was living large. Real estate's awesome. I'm never going to lose. I'm killing it. 2007, I lost $17 million. That in itself is enough to depress some people. I literally looked at that as an opportunity. Now, don't get me wrong, I was pretty sad there for a little bit. But number one, at least I had $17 million to lose. So just like our President Donald Trump, he probably doesn't want to show his tax returns. Same situation that I'm in. I'm carrying forward so much loss from years past that the way the tax codes are structured, my taxes are very minimal every year. And that is because of that large hit. So I took that negative, turned it into a positive, and we just started rocking and rolling with it. 2007 might have been my worst year ever, but 2008 was my best year. I had a large hedge fund down of New York City. I'm not even going to mention their name on here. If you want to know the name of them, PM me, feel free. But they brought me on board to literally manage and liquidate their entire portfolio because they mismanaged probably $50 to $100 million that they were able to borrow from Harvard Law School and some of the bigger universities where they had awesome resumes and educational backgrounds. They were very smart people, but they didn't know anything about real estate. They brought me on to help liquidate their inventory, manage their numbers, play with their debt, and I strategically kept them in business. I feel as if I probably single-handedly did that. I feel as if they would have went bankrupt if I didn't save them. And all we did was figure out which properties we could sell first, which ones had just a tiny bit of equity in, or which ones we could put a small amount of money into, fix them up, get them off the books, take that money, and then off to the next one. And we were able to liquidate probably about 500, 600 properties just in 2008. And that was a major boost to my confidence, number one. And that was a major event to put on my resume. And it's what propelled me into 2009 and got me onto that 2007 hurdle. I took all the capital that they paid me, which was a good chunk of change. And we ended up buying 150 properties in 2009 in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. So whenever I say, don't let those big numbers fool you with the big apartment buildings, it is damn near the same energy, effort, and knowledge that goes into a 5-unit, a 55-unit, or 155 unit. Now, it's not going to be exactly the same amount of energy and effort. It's going to be the same knowledge. But if you're going to buy a 5-unit, just picture this. The amount of effort you have to put into that 5-unit is this much, right? If you're going to buy a 55-unit, it's not tenfold. It's not this times 10, the amount of energy and effort you have to put into it. It's literally, this is the amount of effort for a 5-unit. This is the amount of effort for a 55-unit. This is the amount of effort for a 155-unit. So my opinion is you might as well go big. Once you have the knowledge, the systems, the processes, the teamwork, the foundation behind you to do that. But there is nothing wrong if it fits into your goals and you want to buy 3 units and 5 units all day long. I know a lot of people that make a lot of money in it. I literally took $5 or $6 million in cash, and we more than doubled that money over the last couple years because we were smart with our purchases. I consider myself an investor, and I took what the market gave me. That's one of the biggest things that I took from 2007 was don't try to fit that square peg into a round hole. Take what the market will give you. Take the opportunities presented in front of you and run with them. Don't try to force anything. Just win. And even if it's the smaller numbers that you're winning with, that's awesome. Everybody has different goals. This is not a race. Real estate is an awesome investing catapult. And as long as you are sticking along with your goals, you have your eye on the big prize at the end, whatever that is for you and your family, you're winning. And that's the goal. It's not a race. Don't be concerned with all the things you see on social media. I see a lot of people right now buying a lot of properties, and I see a lot of people, I see a lot of friends. I see a lot of social media buying the wrong property in this market because they feel as if they got to go big. They feel as if it's a race. They feel as if they got to walk into that room, stick their chest down and say, hey, I own 1,800 apartments. Look at me. I would rather walk into a room and say, hey, I own 50 apartments. Look at me. Let's compare cash flow. I'd rather make 200 a door, because when that market starts to change and that market starts to dip, occupancy becomes a little bit less, vacancy becomes a little bit higher, the market starts to correct itself. Me and my family will live off of this cash flow. So I see people today buying properties with $50 a door cash flow. If you have a $75 price reduction and you own 100 or 200 or 500 apartments and you're losing $25 or $50 a month, that can be detrimental to you and your family. That can cause divorces. That can cause business partnerships to dissolve. That can cause positive mindsets or positive mindsets to shift. So be smart with it. Take what the market will give you. Learn from others. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. 4 things that I wish someone would have explained to me back when I was 22 years old. Granted, when I was 22 years old, I was so hard-headed, probably borderline cocky, that I probably wouldn't have listened, but I literally wish someone would have taken me, grabbed me, slammed me down on that chair, and just held me there and drilled me with why multifamily, why commercial is so much better. Number 1, it's a team sport. Number 2, more efficiency equals a higher price. Number 3, you have cap rates versus comparables. Number 4, which is one of the biggest things, if I buy one apartment building and I do all the due diligence one time, it will pay you for years and years and years to come. Versus you buy one single family house, you fix it up, you sell it. What do you need to do right after that? You have to go find another deal. You're starting over from square one. It's a job. It's not a career. So let's talk about this a little bit. Multifamily real estate, commercial real estate is a team sport. What does that mean? It is a team sport. When you drive past some of these big apartment buildings, I don't care if we're talking a 20 unit, I don't care if we're talking a 220 unit. People don't buy them by themselves. If you see me post on social media that I just bought a 100-unit apartment building, I didn't do that alone. I have a team of people in my office. I have individuals who analyze deals for me. I have individuals who specifically cold call and search markets and build relationships with brokers and property managers and residential realtors. I have people in my office that are scouring new markets for new opportunities. This is a team sport. When you go to apply for a loan, they don't care about me. They do not care about Garrison Gilbert. When I say it's a team sport, when you go in and you apply for a loan for a residential house, a $300,000 house, this is kind of a true story. If I go in and I apply for a $300,000 house, they're going to look at me and they're going to say, Mr. Garrison, let me see your W-2. Well, I'm self-employed. Mr. Garrison, how's your credit? It's horrible. Mr. Garrison, do you have any cash in the bank? I have nothing. Now, these are just for example purposes, but this is what a lender is going to ask you. Mr. Garrison, what are you doing right now that you can afford this house? Well, you know what? I don't really work. I have bad credit. I don't have cash in the bank. Mr. Lender, are you willing to loan me $350,000 for this house? No, Mr. Garrison, I'm sorry, we can't. We don't think that you can afford it. Okay, that's fine. Now, let me walk into that same lender tomorrow, assuming that this lender will loan on commercial properties. Mr. Lender, remember me? My name's Garrison. I was here yesterday. Remember you turned me down for a $300,000 loan? Yes, Mr. Garrison, we remember. How are you? What do you want? Well, I found this $15 million apartment building. I want to take it down. Can you loan me money on it? Mr. Garrison, how's your credit? It sucks. But you know what? I have this guy. I have my buddy John. John has awesome credit. Okay. Do you have any cash in the bank? I don't. On a $15 million property, they're probably going to want to see roughly $5 million liquid and in our bank account. Do you have it, Mr. Garrison? I do not. But guess what? I have this great friend named Scott Carson. He does. He has 5 million. Or him, his family, his work colleagues, his 18 friends, his 55 friends, whatever that number is, me and these 50 people, we have $5 million. Well, okay, Garrison. Do you guys have a resume? Do you have experience to take down a 150 unit apartment building? I don't. I've never bought a 150 unit apartment building, sir. But I have a property manager, and this property manager manages apartment buildings all day long. Well, that's fantastic, Garrison. Well, we're willing to loan you $15 million. Literally, that's how easy it is to an extent. It is much easier for me to get a $15 million loan than it is for me to get a $350,000 loan on a house down the street. It's crazy how that works. If you would have set me down at 22 years old, I would have never believed you. And if that seems like a foreign concept to you, you just have to trust me on that. That's how multifamily, that's how commercial works. Another really sweet thing about multifamily real estate is the more efficient this building is, the more this building is worth. It's not worth what the apartment building down the street traded at. It is worth the net operating income. The NOI tells me what this building is worth. What is NOI? It is all of your rental income minus all of your expenses. So you're buying, in essence, you're buying a business. If this business is generating capital, we're willing to loan you money. If this business, the more money that this business generates, the more this property is worth. And that's an absolutely beautiful thing. Another really big thing is cap rates. This property is, like I said, this property is not worth what the building next door, the building down the street is worth. This building is worth a multiplier of that rental income. And a small bump in rental income or a small decrease in expenses will shift the evaluation on that property greatly. So think about this, a 100-unit apartment building, right? If you can find some value add opportunities in that rental income, somehow you can just bump that rent up $20 a month, $20 a month. That's not a big number. $20 a month to a family is not going to cause them to move out of your building. But you take that $20 times 100 apartments, that's a pretty considerable number. Now, if you can get your vendors down 20 bucks, decrease the price on snow removal, decrease the price on lawn maintenance, maybe you bill back utilities, maybe you start charging a little bit more for parking or additional storage, or you do away with some of the extras that people don't necessarily utilize all the time. But one way or another, you shift that rental income up $20 and the expenses decrease $20. You take that with a multiplier of the cap rate, and literally you can change the evaluation of an apartment building by 7 figures by doing something so small. So think about that. If I buy a 100-unit apartment building and I bought it with all of my friends, or maybe they're not my friends, but it's at least these 50 people that I met at conferences. It's at least 50 people that I met at online social gatherings, such as this note camp. You take these 50 people, you buy one apartment building, you increase that rent just a hair, $20. That's not much money. You decrease those expenses just a hair, $20. That's not much money. And all of a sudden, I put $1 million worth of value into this apartment building, which puts more profit into me and my team's pocket whenever we go to refinance or we go to sell. So that right there is probably the largest difference between single family and commercial. And if somebody would have explained that to me when I was 22 years old, I probably would not be sitting right here in front of you on this computer screen. I would probably be sitting on a yacht somewhere on a private island, hanging out with a couple buddies, because we would have 15 to 20,000 apartments under our belt right now. And I would have been buying apartments back when the market really corrected in around 2009, which I'm hoping that market starts to correct itself. I don't think we'll see a 2009 type of epidemic that we did see, but I'm expecting a pretty decent change in the market based off of what I'm seeing, based upon what has happened the last few years and some of the numbers I see people buying things at. And right now we're at a beautiful stage of the cycle where it's 2019. 10 years ago was 2009, right? People started buying apartment buildings in 2009, 2010, 2011. They're right now coming up for their refinance. Whenever people come up for their refinance, and if the market shifts, what's going to happen? If the evaluation has changed a great deal and that apartment building is not worth what you thought it was going to be worth, if you bought that property at too slim of numbers and now you can't structure a refinance, then us being note investors, us being in the real estate note world, us being in commercial notes, that leads us to a perfect opportunity, which is why I'm guessing Mr. Scott Carson put on this great show. Right now is the best time to be learning multifamily real estate. Right now is the perfect time to be learning real estate notes, because we're going to be coming up on a 10-year refinance period for people that were buying in 2012, 2013. They're going to start thinking about their refi. Numbers were tight then. Numbers are tight now. They're not going to be able to refi. They're going to have to let their properties go. A lot of lenders are going to be taking properties back. So if you start putting commercial notes on your radar, you start building up your database of asset managers at some of these regional banks, at some of these local banks. You'll be sitting very pretty. You'll be sitting in a place where you can do some really big things and really grab some inventory for 40, 50% on the dollar. You just have to set yourself up right. And I'm guessing that's why you're right here watching this one, Note Camp. You never hear anyone say that I used to buy apartment buildings, but now I'm doing single family. But you hear all the time people talking about, I used to be in single family, but I'm doing apartment buildings. Why is that? Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Follow a system, follow steps, follow a procedure that will put you in the best position to win. And that's why I like to surround myself with people that win. I surround myself with people like Scott Carson. I surround myself with people like Scott Carson because he's going to help me get to a new level, and I'm going to help him get to a new level. And we're going to do some really awesome things. I know plenty of people who own apartment buildings and are in the apartment sector that fly around on private jets. They have their own jets. I don't know anyone in the single family space that has their own private jet. I'm sure there's a person or two out there, but it's just a lot more difficult to create that scale with single family. And where the market is right now, now's the time where you want to learn commercial, you want to learn multifamily, you want to learn commercial notes. So I jumped on this note camp yesterday. I heard an individual talking about all of the benefits of why you should be buying self-storage, how self-storage is the best asset class out there. He had some great points. Some of those exact points are the exact same things that we're going to talk about in multifamily. Cash flow, forced appreciation, cap rates. This business is scalable. Single family is not scalable. Single family is a job. Multifamily, we just talked about it being a team sport. Financing is easy in this space. OPM, other people's money. That is a common term in commercial real estate. Seller financing is a common term in commercial real estate. Other people's money and seller financing, it's almost a given. When you go and you buy a large property, we often have seconds or seller financing clauses and different things into our LOI, which is our letter of intent. That's one of the biggest differences well, I shouldn't say it's one of the biggest differences, but that's a minor difference between single family and multifamily. With single family, you submit a contract. If they accept it, they sign it, they send it back to you. In multifamily and commercial, you submit what's called an LOI, a letter of intent, which is just a basic one-pager. It says that I want to buy your property. I want to give you X amount of dollars. Here's my terms. Here's when I want to close. Here's what information I want from you. I want a copy of rent rolls. I want a copy of your expenses. I want your trailing 12, which is known in this business as the T12. Your trailing 12 shows exact rental income, shows exact expenses month by month for trailing 12, which is the trailing 12 months, the 12 months prior to today, to show you how that property is performing, to show you where that money is going, to show you where that money is coming from, and that's how you analyze a property. And another huge benefit with commercial real estate is accelerated tax write-offs and cost segregation. It's almost a way where you can buy an apartment building today and take a huge tax deduction today based off of different things in that building. Cost segregation is an analysis you get done pretty much by an engineer, and they say that you can accelerate the depreciation on this building with this list of items, and it creates huge tax advantages for you for the first couple years of ownership. And another big benefit with multifamily real estate is professional management. When I was in the single family space, I ended up, after just a few years in this business, I ended up being a licensed realtor. I ended up being a licensed property manager. I ended up being a licensed contractor. Not because I wanted to. That was never my intention. My intention was to buy a house, pay a contractor, fix it up, pay a realtor, sell it. Plain and simple, then on to the next house. It didn't work out that way. Ended up becoming a professional, we ended up becoming our own management company because we had vacancies too long. Ended up becoming a professional management company because we were getting ripped off on the toilets, the termites, the tenants, the little miscellaneous repairs that need done regularly. I know that it doesn't cost $150 to replace a toilet. It takes 30 minutes once the toilet is on site. I'm not going to pay $150 for that. And once I saw a couple statements, I was like, man, we got to get into this. Once I fixed up one or two houses, I got my first house, I got ripped off by my first contractor. That should have been a lesson of things to come. So we ended up fixing up our own properties, ended up babysitting my own crews. Just like a realtor, my goal was to fix a property, list a property, have that realtor sell it. First time I listed a property for sale by a realtor, I listed two properties directly next door to one another. And I kind of ran a race against a realtor. He listed that property up for sale, apples to apples, exactly identical properties. He listed it for 3 weeks. We had no real showings on it. I took this property, I listed it in the newspaper. That's what people did back in 2002. Craigslist wasn't I don't even know if Craigslist was around back then, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But you would list a property in the newspaper on a Saturday, then you would sit there and field calls. And real quick, I realized that I needed to control everything in-house. But now that we scaled up to larger multifamily properties, bringing in professional property managers who deal specifically with these large apartment buildings, and you can have management on site, it makes the logistics a lot easier. It makes the headaches a lot less. It makes the profit a little bit more. So let's go back and we'll just talk about these real quick in order. Cash flow. You buy an apartment building one time, you collect cash flow for years to come. I'm not going to say that there's not going to be some headache at the very beginning, or at least some legwork while you're doing some value add. Whether you're renovating properties or you're just doing some value add by making that property more efficient, like we talked about a few minutes ago. Forced appreciation. Pretty much the same thing. If you can increase that rent a little bit, decrease those expenses a little bit, you can force that appreciation up. You can force those numbers to look better. You can force that value up, which will increase the amount of money that you put in your pocket on a refi or on a sale. My goal as a multifamily owner right now is to buy, hold, collect cash flow. I am selling off 100 and plus apartments right now only because we see that right now is a time to sell some things due to market conditions, not because of personal reasons or cash flow reasons or anything we're doing in-house. But if someone is willing to overpay for a couple properties right now, I'm willing to sell a couple properties right now. And I talked a little bit about the scalability of this business. It's a lot easier to continue buying apartments once you have the systems in place. It's a lot easier to scale a business where you have one roof, you have one boiler, you have several hot water heaters, but everything is in-house, everything is uniform. So something that's really nice in regards to the management and the maintenance of these buildings, if I have 50 houses or if I have 50 apartments under one roof, which one's going to be easier to manage? Number one, it's one location. Number two, it's one roof. Number three, we have one style toilet. We have one kitchen faucet. We have one ceiling fan. We have one refrigerator. So when something breaks, we don't have to run to Home Depot. My handyman doesn't run to Lowe's, Home Depot, doesn't have to figure out, oh, what kitchen faucet was that? Was that a one hole? Was that a three hole kitchen faucet? We probably have the kitchen faucets already in the basement or storage rooms of our facility. And even bigger benefit than having things on site and having things uniform is the fact that if I have 50 houses, which I've had way more than this at one time, my handyman can do 2 or 3 repair jobs in a day because he goes, he looks at the job, he figures out what he needs, he runs to Home Depot, he pays for the material, he runs back to the property, he then fixes that one kitchen faucet, boom, 3.5 hours later. Anyone who's ever been to Home Depot, you don't just walk in there, grab something and get out. There's a line everywhere. You can't find half the time what you're looking for. It just creates a burden on the process. So if my handyman can drive to one roof and he can walk downstairs into the basement and grab whatever he needs, walk back upstairs and fix it, we just fixed a kitchen faucet. It took 15 minutes. It cost us $30 versus 3 hours, Home Depot, $150, plus the amount of time that I just paid him for 3-4 hours worth of work, plus the mileage, plus the gas, plus him being in a bad mood, plus my tenants wondering if he's coming back because they had to sit at home or whatever the situation was. So long story short, it's just a lot easier from that angle. Multifamily, it's a team sport. We just talked about it. Single family, it's a job. I mentioned it. You buy a single family house, I don't care what you're doing with it. Even if you're renting it out and holding it, that's awesome. Chances are you're going to need more than $150 a month cash flow every month to live off of, to really change your life, to really do much with. So no matter what you did with that house, whether you held it, whether you sold it, whether you wholesaled it, whether you flipped it, it doesn't matter. Chances are when you got done with that project, at least for today, tomorrow, you got to go look for another deal. You got to look for another property. You got to go advertise. You got to put all your feelers out there. You got to reach back out to your realtors. You got to have that constant deal flow coming in. And it just becomes a little bit of a headache. Financing. I mentioned how easy financing was with multifamily real estate. They really do not care about you. They really care about the project. They really care about the debt service coverage ratio. In this business, it's called the DSCR. And all that states is the amount of rental income that this property is bringing in is at least 1.25 times greater than the amount of money that this loan, that these expenses cost. Meaning there's extra money left over at the end of the month that you can pay your mortgage and you can put 0.25 roughly into your pocket for a rainy day, because that seller wants to make sure that at the end of the month, he gets paid, plain and simple. Other people's money, big part of this business. People do not go and buy 50 unit, 100 unit, 25 unit apartment buildings typically by themselves. You need money partners. You need financial backers. You need people with net wealth. You need people with liquidity. You surround yourself with those 3 or 4 individuals, and that can be the same person. It can be several people. But you surround yourself with those type of individuals, good things will happen. Your business will grow. Your team will grow. And if you're buying the right properties at the right time, at the right price, things just go crazy in terms of cash flow, equity, partners mentality. Everyone's happy when everyone's winning. Then it's time to go on and buy the next one. Seller financing, common practice in commercial real estate. And we already talked about tax write-offs and professional management. You have anything you want to add in here, Scott?
Garrison, you okay, bud?
Yep, good to go, man. I was just making sure I was still online.
Yeah, you're good. You're still online. You're rocking it.
Awesome. So we just went over why multifamily real estate, right? So let's talk about why now. 2019, why would I want to get into multifamily real estate? Why would I want to get into commercial real estate now? Last year, probably about 8-10 months ago, I was interviewed by Think Realty magazine. And I pretty much expressed the exact same things I'm going to say right here. I said that now is the time where you want to get your foundations under you. You want to learn this business. You want to get knowledgeable. You want to learn this business inside and out. You want to set up your systems. You want to set up your processes. You want to set up your team. Because whenever this market starts to turn, whenever this market starts to take a dip, you want to have all of your cash, all of your people, all of your systems, all of your knowledge in place so that you can jump on the market, so that you can be a little bit, you can catch that downtrend and you're ready to jump on it whenever properties become available. Whenever you start to see excess inventory hit the market, just like 2008, 2009, 2010, people that are really wealthy right now through real estate and through multifamily real estate, chances are that they were buying properties back then. 2008 was, if anyone who was in this business at that time, you remember that nobody was buying anything. I don't care what you were doing. The economy slowed, almost stopped. You went to a shopping mall, there was nobody at it. Cash registers were not ringing. And I don't think we'll get to that point anytime soon. Probably, maybe never in my lifetime. I don't know. But I know that in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, they were some of the greatest years I've had in my investing career. And the next time that happens, I want to be there to jump on things, because that's when a little bit of work, a little bit of effort can really propel you to the next level. Back then, we were able to find single family, short sales, properties that were just listed with realtors. We were able to literally make 10 offers every 2 or 3 days. We would get 6 or 7 of those offers accepted. We would literally make $30,000 to $50,000 per wholesale deal. And then if we fixed and flipped something, we were making 75 to 100 all day long. And that was a great time. And I took it for granted. I wish I would have bought 10x the amount that I did. But you learn from your lessons, and I can't really complain, because we did buy probably 120 to 150 properties between the beginning of 2009 and the middle of 2010 or so, maybe even early on in 2010. So I can't complain, but I definitely want to be ready for the next time that that happens. We're starting to see signs that the market is already starting to slow. Real estate has been very hot for the last 8-10 years. But just since last year, just since November, I thought it would pick up a little bit more in the springtime. We've seen more properties come onto the market. We've seen less of a bidding war. We have seen less multiple offers. And we've seen, when I said less of a bidding war, we've just seen more realistic offers, I should say, where you can still kind of justify some of the prices versus a year or two ago. People were coming in and building 7 figures more than me on a relatively small apartment building. I just look and I'm like, man, how are they doing that? Why? How are they analyzing this deal where their numbers make sense? Because I know that I'm at my absolute max right now. And then someone comes in and overbids you by $1 million. It just makes you scratch your head. But now we're starting to see some slowdown. Some of those people who were super aggressive in their underwriting the last couple of years, this is why you want to be in the real estate note business. They're going to have a hell of a time trying to refinance. And I want to be sitting there. I want to be sitting there with my relationships with my asset managers. I want to be sitting there with my relationships with my capital partners. I want to be sitting there with my relationships with the bankers and the lenders who are going to loan me money that I've been building up this relationship with for the last couple of years. Because when I call them and I say, hey, it's time to go, I want them to know that I am serious about it. Number one, I want them to know that if I'm going to jump on something, it's going to be a slam dunk, because they have seen me turn away more deals. We're looking at 200-300 deals. I know that sounds like a lot. It is a lot. But right now we're looking at 200 or 300 deals before we even purchase one. And for every probably 100 deals that we look at, we submit probably 3 or 4 LOIs. That's not a ton of LOIs. It's not a ton of offers going out. But it's just because we know where we need to be for our numbers to work for us. I'm not willing to stretch some things. We stress test things in a way that if it doesn't work for us, it doesn't work for us. I learned my lessons in '07. One of the biggest takeaways from 2007 was that I need to focus on cash flow, number one, and number two, don't force anything. Don't bank on appreciation. Don't bank on an appraised value that really means nothing if someone is not willing to buy it at that number. So get your knowledge, get your systems, get your network, get your capital in place. Cash flow is king. Cash flow is recession proof. We're only buying properties right now with roughly $200 a month positive cash flow per door. I know a lot of people right now that are buying things at $50 to $75 a month cash flow per door. I say cash flow is recession proof. It doesn't mean that rents won't be bumped down a little bit. It doesn't mean that occupancy won't decline a little bit or vacancy won't increase a little bit. But when it does, I would much rather go from $200 a month cash flow to $140 a month cash flow versus starting out at $75 a month cash flow and going to negative 25 a month cash flow. I can't afford to be at negative 25 a month per door cash flow on a 100-unit property. That's a lot of money every month to come out of pocket. And that's not a great way to sleep at night. And I don't want to be in that position. I've been in that position. In 2007, I was literally spending $45,000 to $55,000 a month every month out of my pocket on a portfolio of properties that I bought all around the Baltimore Harbor. Anyone who's familiar with Baltimore, I used to own half of Federal Hill and Locust Point. I thought I was a big guy in the neighborhood. I was living life. What could go wrong? Yeah, what could go wrong? I woke up and houses that were not rentable, houses that I bought for $185,000 to $205,000 that were complete rehabs, complete renovations, were then worth $100,000. And even at $100,000, nobody was buying them. Cash flow is king. Cash flow is not 100% recession proof, but if you buy it right, a little bit of a dip in your cash flow will still create a winning situation for you and your teams. And when I jumped over from single family real estate into multifamily real estate, I thought that it was going to be a super hard process. I thought it was something that I just wouldn't understand. This business is really simple. I've seen some really dumb people make a ton of money, and I've seen some really smart people lose a ton of money. With that being said, this business is about 3 simple things. And stick to the process. Don't reinvent the wheel. This business is about finding deals, building your team, finding money. And if you're successful at those 3 things, this business will work for you. It is literally that simple. So let's talk about raising capital. something that Scott Carson has helped me out with tremendously. He might not even realize how much he's helped me out with it. Raising capital is all about what? It's all about networking, networking, networking. You want to tell everybody what you do. Become a professional in your space. Get your elevator pitch down. Jump on social media. Be smart with social media. Go to meetups. Go to RIAs. Get involved with your community. Go to conferences. I mentioned to you about the multifamily boot camp that I get to speak at 3 times a year. 40% of that room, we have big crowds come. I get to speak in front of 500 to 800 people. That's an awesome feeling, number one. But number two, it's awesome to become friends with these people. There's probably a 40% return ratio because it's not all about the knowledge. It is literally all about building up your database, surrounding yourself with awesome people. Because if you're going to need people to invest with you, where are you going to meet them at? You don't meet them by sitting at your house, hanging out by yourself. You got to get out there. You got to put yourself out there. Get involved with masterminds. Scott Carson has an awesome mastermind. It was one of the first masterminds I've ever joined. I never even knew what a mastermind was before I met Scott Carson. And I've really met some awesome people who are some of my business partners today. A guy named Jason Gray. I met him 4 years ago through Scott's group, and he is still one of my business partners today. He just sent me a text message a little bit ago. We have a mastermind/team call later on tonight with a bunch of multifamily people in about an hour and a half. Go to them, get involved, put yourself out there. One thing I just mentioned, get your elevator pitch down. Tell everybody what you do. It can be real simple, 30 seconds or less. If I'm on an elevator, if I'm on a ski lift, if I am just sitting down and having a drink with some random person that pulls up and pulls a seat up beside me, I want to be able to tell them really short, really simple what I do. What do? I own a small investment firm. It's called investpropartners.com. What do? We buy apartment buildings. Number 3, we help individuals just like you build wealth with real estate. And if you notice on this slide presentation, I underlined the word real estate. I like to include the word real estate, not the word multifamily, because everybody thinks of real estate. Everybody wants to invest in real estate. Everyone who's ever watched HGTV thinks that they can be a real estate investor. I want to play off of that emotional glitch that they hear the word real estate, they want in. So I play off of those words. And if you notice, whenever I said my elevator pitch, I ended that sentence almost with a question mark, not an exclamation point. We help individuals just like you build wealth with real estate. And then I just stop. I listen. If they perk up, if their ears perk up, if they look at you and they want to talk about more and they start asking questions, awesome. If not, if he looks the other way and he wants to start talking about the weather or some pretty girl over here or whatever else is going on over there, awesome, fantastic. I know he's not interested. But most of the time when you mention the word real estate, they will be at least a little bit intrigued. Another thing that I've done to raise a lot of capital, and this is something that Scott Carson has helped me out with tremendously, and that's why right here in the background of this screen presentation, I have a picture of Scott and myself. A couple years ago when I met Scott, I had no social media. I did not like Facebook. I did not care what your child wore to their first day of kindergarten. I didn't care what you had for dinner last night. Chances are I still don't today, but I switched around, created a Facebook profile, and over the last 3 years, just off of Facebook, I've raised probably close to $3 million. I've met some very smart, interesting people that I now consider business partners of mine. My social network has grown tremendously. I now have friends in almost every city in every state across America. So think about that from a note standpoint. Think about that from an apartment building standpoint. If I'm looking at a deal in Kansas City, Kentucky, or Kansas City, Kansas, I know that I can call up my buddy Brett or Eric, who grew up in Kansas City. If I'm looking at something in Tucson, Arizona, I call up a friend of mine, Bethany, who knows everything about the Tucson market. If I'm looking at a deal in Lexington, Kentucky, I have a friend in Lexington, Kentucky, who I will call up in a heartbeat and I'll say, hey, drive past this property for me. Hey, What do you think of this area? Hey, what do you think of Lexington in general? That is a huge, huge, huge benefit. So some smart things you can do with social media. And when you get on social media, you got to be smart about it. You got to be strategic about it. Join every Facebook group that you can that is associated with your career or the field that you want to be in. I went through and I literally joined every real estate note group. I joined every multifamily real estate group. I went through it and I added value to absolutely every one of those groups, every one of those forums. I went in there, if people had questions, I had 15, 16, 18 years of experience. If someone asks questions, I'm on there, we'll just rattle off answers. I can answer that stuff all day long. I literally set 1 hour a day off where I just hop on groups and forums and I just go through and I start looking at questions. I just start answering them. I'll just rattle off answers, rattle off answers, rattle off answers, because the more content, the more value you can provide, the more people want to do business with you, the more people want to associate with you, the more people want to be your friend. Another thing you can do strategically with social media, build your friends list. I see a lot of people who I teach this business to. I mentioned earlier, I'm a multifamily coach. I have 30 to 40 students all across the United States. And these are some really smart, some really awesome people. But I look at their social media and they say, hey, I want to start pushing social media out. First thing I look at is their friends list. They have 450 friends, and that's cool. And they have all of their privacy settings set to, hey, only my friends can see it, or only my wife can see it, or whatever. I'm the opposite. My page is an open book. It's a 24/7 advertisement. I went through and I started going through those forums, and if I see people that are adding value, if I see people who say that they just close deals, if I see people that seem to know their stuff, add a friend, add a friend, add a friend. And I built my friends list from 400, 600 people up to 4,500 people. Facebook has a maximum of 5,000. I really don't want to get any bigger on there. So I got to be strategic and I got to do some smart things. And I had to create a business page and I had to have some people follow me versus friend request me. And that's a good problem to have, because the more people you can reach, the more people that see your stuff, the more consistent you are, the bigger things will happen for you. Another thing you can do, be a good friend. If one of your friends types something, comment on it, like that thing, because you want them to do it with you. And I have a few friends where we will literally tell each other, hey, I'm not getting a lot of activity on this post. Get on there, comment something, ask a question. I'll reply and I'll throw some cool tidbits out. You do that. You be a good friend. You help them out. They help you out. The more you comment on their things, the more they comment on your things. Things hit the algorithms. They get pushed towards the top. And that's how you guys grow as a group. That's how you guys grow as a business. And that's some things you really have to put into place. And these are some things I didn't think about until I met Scott. And since then, like I said, who wouldn't want an extra $3 million invested with you just from sitting in front of your computer? It's a great situation. We are so fortunate to live in 2019 where we are right now. But you just can't do it right now. You just can't do it today. You just can't do it Monday and forget about it until next week. You got to be consistent. I know some people, and Scott himself, he used to preach to me, you got to be posting 3-4 times a day. You got to be posting all throughout the day. You got to do it every day, every day, every week, every month. You have to be consistent. So if you put a couple of those strategies into place and make your page open up for the world to see, a couple of things I don't have listed on here that I'm just thinking about right now while I'm talking. On my page, if you pull up my Facebook page, you pull up Garrison Gilbert, you're going to see first and foremost, it says 1,200 purchased, 1,200 properties since 2001. It'll say multifamily real estate investor. It'll say Baltimore, Maryland. Because when I go and I add someone as a friend, or I click that little button to add them, or they look at my page because they see something that I post or something that I shared, I want them to know why I sent them a friend request. I don't want them to think that I'm just another guy. If it's a girl, I don't want them to think, oh, here's another guy just trying to friend request me because he thinks I'm pretty. Nope, absolutely not. Don't care how pretty you are. Don't care how ugly you are. I care that you're doing something good in real estate. I care that you're a good person. I care that you have the right attitude. And I want them to look at my page and I want them to feel and see the exact same things. See this background picture right here? This is something that I preach. This is something that I implement. And this is something that I learned from Scott Carson. This right here is a photo of how to be strategic with your content. A lot of people don't have an hour a day, 2 hours a day to spend on social media. So this right here shows you how to take one piece of content. This here is pretty much showing a 5-minute video in that big circle in the middle. You take that 1 5-minute video, and if you're smart about it and you're strategic about it, you can take that 1 5-minute video and you can chop it up into several 30-second or 60-second videos. You can take that 1 5-minute video and put a thumbnail with it. You can take some excerpts out of that video if you get it transcribed, and you can then use that video on several different platforms. Use little cutouts of that video on several different platforms. And I can use one video and I can spread it across 40 different posts, and I can reach 10,000 people. And it's all about being strategic. It's all about being consistent. It's all about being yourself. It's all about putting yourself out there, spreading knowledge, spreading the word of real estate, because you want to attract capital. You want to attract other investors. You want to attract people that want to be in your network. And the more people that see you creates more of an opportunity for you and your team. And I'm not really going to dive into the details of this. This is something that I know Scott goes over, and Scott is an expert on this, and not really too much I can add to anything that he does from a social media standpoint. Other than, I'm pretty sure he'll probably say the same thing, is a little disclaimer: stay away from politics, stay away from religion. Another thing we do.
Garrison, I don't mean to rush you, buddy. We got a couple minutes left here, and I wanted to make sure and answer a couple of questions here for you.
Yep, go ahead, man.
So Ian asked a question: how do you think when big hedge funds now partner with builders and do build to rent SFRs instead of investing in MFAs?
You know, I see that all the time. Anytime big money gets involved, it can be a godsend for some people, and it can be a huge downfall for others. I don't like it personally because I can't compete with the big money, because a lot of them are in business for money preservation versus capital growth. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but we're seeing it more and more, unfortunately.
Yeah. Marlene asked a question: are you getting non-recourse loans on your multifamilies?
We are. And we're starting to see more and more of that right now.
Right.
Like I mentioned in the presentation, you're coming up on a time where people need to refinance. We have a pretty slick program that we use that I'm pretty sure Scott knows what program I'm talking about, but you can go in and you can search the databases of what regional lenders have in their inventory in terms of non-performing notes. We're seeing more available notes for sale, and we're seeing lenders sell off more of these notes versus holding them in-house right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree totally. Marlene asked a question: your position on bank debt paydown, your long-term exit strategy on multis to keep or sell. Some got loans called back in 2009. So how are you hedging against that?
You know, I'm a buyer. I'm a holder. Our strategy is we will buy a property today. We'll do a refinance in 3 to 4 years. Hopefully we can pay back 60 to 70% of our investor money. And then year 7 or 8, we'll do our second refi. Then everybody gets paid back, and we still keep our investors in the deal for a very small percentage, even after they get all their capital back. So then they are experiencing infinite returns. So that is our general investment strategy.
Cool. Marlene asked, did you create your own fund yet?
I did it a while ago, not in the multifamily sector. I did a fund in the single family space. There's benefits and negatives to a fund versus a syndication. In multifamily, most people do syndications, not funds. I don't know if you're confusing the two words. Slightly different process. A fund is, you give me a bunch of money, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to do whatever I want with it within these parameters of my SEC guidelines. Versus a syndication is deal specific. You give me X amount of dollars. Those dollars are going specifically into this property, this project that you know that I've explained to you that you feel comfortable with.
Cool. Ian asked, which multifamily conferences are good? There are too many of them, and it seems like a shiny object now that when assets are mostly overvalued. We want to prepare for the next downturn, so we want to go to the good conferences. Which ones would you recommend?
We will have 600 to 800 people in Baltimore, Maryland on September 26th and 27th and 28th, if I remember correctly. The best multifamily conference in the business, hands down, Rod Khleif's Multifamily Boot Camp, which is on this screen right here, only because the mindset, it's not all about the information. He delivers awesome information, but the mindset of the people that go to this specific conference, everybody literally wants to help everybody. I've been to other conferences where it's more cutthroat. It's more of a competition. I don't like that. This space is big enough for all of us to win. And so I definitely recommend Rod Khleif's Multifamily Boot Camp. If you look it up, you type in the word Garrison, you will save $100 on your ticket. And we have early bird pricing right now. It's very, very, very affordable for what you get with 3 days worth of content and networking. Yeah,
Rod's a great guy. I mean, I've known Rod for a couple of years, and just absolutely is a big heart. And he's had his ups and downs like anybody else has, and he's got such a big heart. And it's good to see that echoes through his conferences as well, Garrison.
Yeah, I consider Rod Khleif one of my main mentors, as well as Scott Carson. Both of them are great people that do awesome things, and both of them have helped me out tremendously. Both of them have put me on stage and put me in front of a bunch of people and have really helped out my career. And really, they've gotten nothing out of it in return, other than me just saying nothing but praises for each of these individuals. It's all about surrounding yourself with awesome people doing awesome things.
I got to meet the Scott Carson guy. I don't know who you're talking about.
I got a picture of him here a couple screens ago. He's a good-looking fellow.
That was from the awesome Mastermind Happy Hour.
Texas.
Yeah, that's right, baby. Sherry asked a question because you mentioned a simple way to understand the debt service cost ratio of 1.25 as your commercial lending. Could you explain it again? She didn't get it.
Okay, your debt service coverage ratio is pretty much based off of the numbers of the property. And if all of your rental income and all of your expenses are all tallied up, right? Your debt service coverage ratio means this is how much your debt service is going to charge you, right? So just say it's $1,000 a month, just for simplicity reasons. It's $1,000 a month is how much your loan is going to cost you. They want to make sure that this property, after all of expenses, is bringing in $1,250 a month, because they want you to be 1.25, meaning they want you to be $250 above that number, because they want to make sure that that lender gets paid back, and they want to make sure that you still have that $250 to either, put in your pocket as profit, or at least put in your pocket and save it for a rainy day for whenever windows need replaced, kitchen needs renovated, boiler goes down to the property, there's a roof leak, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They just want to make sure that they're not tight on their numbers, where the property's bringing in $1,000, my loan going out is $1,000, I'm not making any money. So if I'm not making any money, the chances of me walking away from this property is pretty great. And that's what a lender wants to make sure does not happen. Hopefully that explained it a little bit better.
Yeah, you don't want to be at 100% par. It's that extra, anything you be over 1.25, you're going to probably get funded. I mean, a good way too, Sherry, if you go back and watch the replay from John Matheson on commercial lending success we had yesterday, he did a big deep dive into it with his software, talking about that too. So that's another way to go back and look at it. So you got a couple extras, you got a final slide or two, Garrison, you want to share with everybody how to get a hold of you and things like that as we got to wrap it up for the session?
Yeah, no, I just fast forwarded to my how to get a hold of me, GarrisonGilberts.com. I really want everyone to win in this business. Find me on Facebook. I'm big on Facebook. I have my Instagram and LinkedIn here. Facebook is my channel of choice. Take that one, Garrison Gilbert. Find me on Facebook. Follow my business page. Every week, I really try to put out tons of value, free tips. I have Multifamily Monday, where I talk about different things we're working on in the business. I have Tuesday's Tip of the Week. It's just all about me building up a bigger network. I have nothing for sale. I just want everyone around me to grow, win. Let's network. Let's build something big together. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome, brother. Hey, we are so proud of what you're doing. I mean, all the knowledge in the world isn't worth squat if you don't take action, and you've never been afraid to take action, and that is what has always helped you go out and make something happen. I mean, maybe it might be that we get so long because we're a couple inside linebackers, like getting our head pounded in a little bit. But you've done it. You've been a player beforehand since we met in Baltimore at the Think REIA or the REI Expo a few years back. And just absolutely proud of what you've done. You've done an amazing job, and you've got a big heart. And everybody could see that, I think, from your presentation. So kudos to you guys. Taking advantage of connecting with Garrison. Got a big heart, and I think you can tell that from his presentation out there. So
awesome. Hey, thank you so much for inviting me, and really, really, really from the bottom of my heart, thank you for pushing me into social media a few years ago when I was so against it. Like, wow, what a world of difference, my friend. You know,
you look at you shared some stories. I mean, we got a minute or two here. Why don't you share a couple of the interesting places you've raised capital at out of the blue?
Oh, man. Well, actually, coming home from one of your masterminds, I raised, I can't remember the exact number, $150,000 on an airplane, because literally I just started talking about the real estate, the mastermind that I came back from. Next thing I know, there was like 10 or 12 people just turned around looking at me. I felt like an asshole. I'll be pretty blunt, because I'm like, man, all these people are going to hate me. Like, who wants to listen on a 3-hour flight? But I got off that plane. Everyone wanted my business card, and everybody wanted to do business. Second thing, I was on a ski lift. I live in Breckenridge, Colorado in the winter. I like to hang out where people that have money hang out.
Yep.
I was riding up the lift with an Asian lady and her little daughter, and long story short, we ended up buying land and building 13 houses in Boulder, Colorado, just from me having an elevator pitch. So if you don't take anything away from this presentation that I put on today, get your elevator pitch down, get your social media on point, and if you put yourself out there, I promise you good things will happen.
Good stuff, Garrison. Well, hey, man, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you around. All right, brother?
Thank you.
Thanks, bud. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up for this session of Note Camp. And Brad Burnett, look at you logging on 5 minutes beforehand. I love it.
You know it. I'm always ready to go.
You are on-timeable, right?
Yes.
Well, if you want to, if you're ready to roll, we can just dive right on if you want to. You want to do that?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let me